Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're with us today. So we are going to be talking about the Sunday Scaries. I don't know if your kid has ever had anxiety before going back to school on Monday, but we're going to talk with a clinical social worker and child therapist, Alexandra Luther, and she's going to talk to us about how to manage Sunday Scaries. With that, let's get to Alexandra.
Thank you. I'm happy to be
Yes.
here.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about this important topic of Sunday Scaries because so many kids can have so much anxiety around going back to school on Mondays, right? It could be the Monday scary sometimes, but normally it's Sunday, right? Like our kids doing great through the weekend, and then all of a sudden we're struggling. It's hard. Yes.
Yeah. I think adults too. I mean, Mondays are hard sometimes.
Oh, yes. Mondays can be very hard, right? Just a case of the Mondays, but
It's Monday today. This is a good Monday.
yes. So I think, it's hard when you're a parent and you're like, my kid is doing fine. And then all of a sudden they're struggling and you're like, why is this happening? Like we were just fine. And then they can't go to sleep or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they're just like worried about school. And do I have to go to school tomorrow? And yes, it can be so big. So how do we what exactly do you imagine the Sunday Scaries are? I mean, they're not an official diagnosis, right? But
No,
it's where
it'd be a lot cuter if that was. But I think it's just like this heightened, intense anxiety, fear, dread, irritability that kind of sets in before the school week starts again after the weekend or after a prolonged break. I've seen it be really bad after the winter break, summer break, because you've had a lot of time between. And I think kids can experience it differently too based on their age. I think we see it a lot more differently in teens versus elementary, kindergarten age kids. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just this kind of impending sense of doom for one reason or another. I mean, there's plenty of reasons.
Yeah. So why do you think some kids experience it and others don't? Because, there's some kids who you're like, hey, tomorrow is a school day, blah, blah, blah. And you can tell them as you're putting to bed and they're totally fine.
Yeah,
And then you said that another kid, right, who does have more anxiety before returning to school and they're absolutely not fine. Or they keep asking you, is tomorrow the day we go to school? Is tomorrow the day, right? They have this anxiety. Why, even within the same family, can some kids struggle with this type of anxiety and some kids don't?
Well, I think there can be there's several factors. One, again, age could be depending how it's presenting. For younger kids, there's separation anxiety that can be really hard. Or even older kids, like say they've been through something, or I have a client she's in ninth grade, so she's older, she's well adjusted, but her parents are both military, so if they've been deployed, that's very stressful, and she is fearful, and they come back, she doesn't want to go to school, right? She wants to make sure they're okay. It affects her a lot. So trauma, obviously. So then you have things like maybe there's something going on at school, like are they being bullied? Have they started to be bullied? I think a lot with older kids, there's a lot of stress too, like, oh, there's an exam I absolutely didn't study for, or I'm doing bad in school and I don't feel like I can dig my way out and I'm just so stressed. A lot of kids also struggle with transitions, especially the younger ones. And I think there's even sometimes there's an aspect where a kid might be on the autism spectrum, and that can also make transitions harder. I think that's a big part of it too. Transitions for kids, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do we decide if this is, just general anxiety, like a Sunday anxiety versus
Something more.
something more, right? Like where it's like, okay, I just feel nervous to go back to school, but like how do we know as a parent when it's something that we should really be concerned about or putting a lot of attention towards?
Well, I think like when kids are, your typical anxiety to go back to school because you've just had 2 days off or summer off and you've gotten to have fun and it's less structured and it's great and you're like, oh, I just really don't want to because why would I want to do that when I was just having fun?
Mhm.
I think the normal Sunday anxiety, that's probably a lot more easily quelled, or like, they might huff and puff about it when they get up in the morning, but then they walk into school fine, right? Um, but if it goes beyond that, like if it's interrupting like their capacity to function, or do well, then it's something more, right? Um, some things that could allude to that, like if they're complaining, you get kids that don't feel like going to school, so like, oh, I think I'm sick, like puts the
Mhm.
thermometer to the light bulb type thing,
Mhm.
but they know what they're doing. I think kids that have something beyond just the typical Sunday scaries is you're going to see more of that, like kids that are complaining of random aches and pains, stomach hurts, head hurts. They might go to school and they're making frequent trips to the nurse's
Mhm.
office, but nothing's really wrong with them. um, they start having nightmares, or if, a lot of times with younger kids, meltdowns, either the night, Sunday night or Monday morning, crying spells, uh, just outbursts, panic attacks, even. If those are becoming frequent, that's not like a here or there thing with a young kid. That's definitely probably a sign of something more than just your
Mhm.
typical Sunday scary.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I've definitely had kids who are avoiding school, right? Like they are
Mhm.
like, you can't make me go to school.
Yeah.
Which like, okay, well, we know we can't, like, you do need to go to school. That
Yeah.
is your requirement. But
Yeah.
I know I can't like physically put you in the car and then I can't make you get out. But I mean, I think, we can connect with the school to let them know if we're struggling with
Yeah.
this. But typically, you know, that might be something more like generalized anxiety, or maybe there is something more happening, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe there is a trauma or something that they feel like they can't cope with that might be
Yeah.
bigger. But I think even Sunday scaries could fall into the category of general anxiety,
Oh
depending
yeah.
on how severe it is. Even if it's like during the week, once we're adjusted to the new routine, then we do fine. But then it's like every week we're doing this same cycle of like, Sunday comes and then all of a sudden, maybe it's not even all day. Maybe it's like 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
right? It's something closer to bed, right? Where they're struggling. That could be something that is a bigger deal because it's disrupting your family system. It's disrupting their life, obviously causing them a lot of stress
Yeah.
and causing you stress probably as the parent because
Absolutely.
you want your kid to go to bed. You want them to feel good. You want them to get up and feel rested. And maybe your kid's coming out of their room like 27 times and you're like, oh my gosh, just go to bed. So it can be really
Yes.
frustrating.
Yes.
So, how do you think parents can create a routine, especially with the Sunday scaries, right? That we can on Sunday or whatever the day is that you're going to return to school to
Yeah.
reduce stress, but also promote a smoother transition back to school?
Well, I think that like routine, first of all, is that alone is so important and key for helping with transitions. I think that I know weekends are supposed to be fun, and they should be, but I think routines get thrown off more than they probably need to a lot of the times on the weekends. I know that um, kids and teenagers, sleep, for all of us, sleep so important, affects so many different things. And I
Mhm.
know a lot of homes, we've done this, so me and my kid's father, um you have your 8, 9 o'clock bedtime, whatever it may be, all Monday through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday it's like, oh, it's the weekend, you can stay up as late as you want, right?
Mhm.
Then Sunday night comes along and that's all thrown off, and that's going to add to any of the other stuff they're experiencing or be a contributing factor, right?
Sure.
Throws off the routine.
Mhm.
I think there's a formula for a good routine for Sundays, especially Sunday evening, but might want to start it earlier. And that's predictability plus calmness plus early prep plus emotional validation and plus positivity, right? Um, predictability, that's the routine, right? Kids thrive off of that. When you have a consistency is really important. When you have a consistent routine, that's something that whether maybe they don't like all of it or not, but their nervous system is going to be like regulated because they know what's coming. They're not going to be thrown off, right? And that helps them feel a little more comfortable or in control if they are, I know what happens next, um presenting calm ourselves too. Like we said, like adults have Sunday scaries, and some of us are like, oh my God, I don't want to go back to work. Not everybody loves their job. Well, some of us have stressful projects, whatever it may be. And if we're running around the house with our head like a chicken with our heads cut off, stressed out, freaking out, rushing, irritable because we know tomorrow's Monday morning, our kids pick up on that. And if they're having anxiety, like that's going to be fueling, and then that's going to further our overwhelm. And it's just, and they're learning how to regulate from watching us too. So I think showing up calm as we possibly can and helping ourselves too, that's helpful. Not rushing everything, making sure helpful for not rushing too early prep. Finish homework, not like right before bed if there is homework. I think I like to make sure lunches are packed. Like after dinner, we make our lunches, put them in the fridge, they're ready. Have especially for little kids, have them pick out their outfit the night before. That helps them feel a bit more in control, because doing all these things kind of takes away several things that can set you up for meltdowns the next morning, stressors for the next morning, right? Um, I've had kids that really struggled every morning. Getting dressed was kind of where they'd have their meltdown and that would take up time, so they longer to get to school. No, my clothes aren't tight enough. No, I don't like that color. And like anybody who has a 4 or 5-year-old probably has been there. But it becomes a daily thing. So if you can eradicate any of that to make a smoother morning with less opportunities for that, makes it easier too. And you just make it part of the evening routine. And you want to validate their emotions too. I think well-intentioned, a lot of parents are always, like, oh, you'll be fine. Oh, it's not that serious. Or, there's no reason to be upset. Like, just get in there. And I don't think anyone means bad by that, but it's not validating them. And I think it's important to like acknowledge their feelings and then talk, hey, I can totally understand why you'd be so don't against going to school today, why you're so nervous or scared. Hopefully, like you've kind of identified maybe something, you can talk them through it. But now that we know why, we can fight it and come up with ways to make it not so scary, right? And that's where coping skills come in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think validating, sometimes parents are like, well, then won't that make them feel more of that feeling? And my answer to that would be no, because
No.
if our emotions are being heard, right? So we say, I'm really scared about going to school tomorrow. And somebody's like, don't worry about it. That never makes me stop worrying. Like
Right.
now it's on my mind and I know I can't talk to you about it. And so then that actually can make it amplified instead
Yeah.
of making it so that I feel more comfortable, and instead saying like, hey, I know, like it sounds like you're feeling worried about tomorrow. Like, what are you feeling worried about? Or I understand, like, last weekend we did have a hard time going back to school. But then when you came home on Monday, you told me what a great day you had. Do you think that that would be possible this Monday? That you would have as great of a day? Or, like something that is encouraging, but hearing what they're saying. So like we can also like put positivity in there
Yeah.
to help them with the future.
Yeah, and one of the big things about when you are having anxiety about something is your brain has a tendency to focus on perceived threats or even just perceived possible threats that may not even be a thing, right? So positive, like building positive anticipation like that, like, oh, you had a really good day, like that day, remember that day? It could be like that. Again, what can we do to make it be a good day at school? Positive anticipation helps reshape the brain's tendency to focus on threats going into an anxious situation.
Yeah.
So it's helpful. Another thing you can add into the routine is at dinner, you can start sprinkling in some positive things, like asking your kid, I do this every night at dinner, what was the best part of your day today? What's something you're looking forward to this week we're about to start? So then they can identify something that we can, even if it's not school related, we can remind them like, hey, we just have to get through this many more days and then we get to go to, grandma's house or go to the store, Target, giving them something positive to focus on too.
Yeah. Well, and I think you brought up a good point of anxiety is about threats or perceived threats. Our brain does not know the difference. And I love this analogy of like our brain, the amygdala, which is the part that our limbic system that is responsible for fight, flight, freeze, like our anxiety response. It says, or it works like a smoke detector, right? So it does not have a brain. It just tells us if there's smoke, right? And so if there's smoke, there could be fire, but it also doesn't mean that something's on fire. It could mean that we burnt toast and our smoke alarm's going off, or it could be that there is a fire and the smoke alarm's going off. But if you're a kid and this happens to adults too. This is exactly how our brain works, regardless of how old we are, right? If our brain says that something is dangerous or that it could be dangerous, our brain responds exactly the same way. So whether it is a tiger or there could be a tiger, our brain is going to respond exactly the same way. We're ready to fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? Like we're ready to go to action or no action, depending on which way our brain goes. But that is hard to navigate through because we are in that place. And so it's not easy to just say like, stop worrying about that. Like we have a chemical reaction happening in our brain. And so we have to be able to kind of talk ourselves down, right? Or have our parents help us talk down or put in supports in place to say like, when they are calm, maybe it's also talking about like, what would be something really helpful for you to hear, right? When you're feeling that way. So they go to school on Monday and they have a great day and they're telling you about what a great day it is. I love to make videos or suggest to clients to make videos of themselves saying to themselves what happened. Like, hey, I had a really great day today and I know I was really scared last night, but today was awesome. And this is what happened. And I got to play with these people at recess and whatever. And so them telling themselves, it's not me as their mom saying, hey, remember last week? I mean, sometimes that works, but the most powerful thing would be ourselves telling ourselves, right?
That's a great idea. I'm going to absolutely incorporate that into my kids.
Awesome. Yes. So, I mean, it's something that we can all do and it's so easy. And so then it's like, hey, let's go back and listen to that video. Right. And so we can like talk about what we want in there. And like, as a parent, you can be part of the video, but it's important that the kid is saying the things right to themselves so that they can go back when that hard thing happens and say, actually, you know what? It really wasn't that big of a deal. And I do really like my class and I do really like my teacher. Like maybe my teacher isn't my favorite, but my best friend's in that class, or I really like this, right? Like, not everything has to be perfect. We're able to adapt to less desirable situations, but we're just trying to get our kids to see that tomorrow is not dangerous. Going to school is generally not dangerous, right? I would say, thankfully, we don't actually have danger there very often, right? And so then to be able to go there, most of these kids that are having Sunday scaries, it's not something specific that's happened. It's just anxiety about the transition back to this other less desirable, less fun scenario. And their brain is alarming them, saying, hey, there could be danger here. This is not what you actually want to do. So be on alert. And I think that can be hard for parents too. But I love the idea of talking about like the positives and the things that they're looking forward to, because sometimes we forget to bring up like the positive stuff that's coming. Like, remember you have a field trip, or, your friend's been sick, but their mom said that they're going to be back tomorrow, or whatever it is. Those little things are great ways, and kids need to socialize and they love being in connection with their peers for the most part. And so I think being back in school, it's more of the routine, right? The transition than it is the actual going to school for a lot of them.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of kids, like even the worst meltdowns in the morning, like once they're through the doors, away from mom or dad, like in class, they're fine.
Yes.
And it's when it goes beyond that that's like, okay, this may be more than the Sunday scaries.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's hard to see as a parent, right? Like when you're dropping your kid off, I have dropped off crying kids, which is so incredibly hard. It like broke my heart.
Mom guilt, so bad.
Yes, so bad to be dropping my kid off. But like the therapist inside me is like, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. Drive away, go, right? Like, and I'm like, I love you, bye, right? Like it's so hard, but then we're okay, right? That transition be very tricky. But it can be hard on us too. And so we have to be
Yeah.
thoughtful about our reaction to our kids struggling.
Yeah. And that can be really hard because again that also provides an opportunity for consistency even when it's hard for us like to let them go like you got to go to class. I know you're crying like I love you. I'm going to see you right after. Um I think a lot of moms especially with the little ones and like the early years of going to school like you just feel bad. But if we're always like okay, well we can go, do this today or
Mhm.
you can come to work with me. Not everybody has that luxury, but some of us do. Like, but then that's not going to provide consistency
Yeah.
to get them used to it, and it's hard.
It is hard. Well, and then we accommodate, right? So then we don't
Right.
want our kids to experience something that is really hard. And so we try to make it easier on them by accommodating their anxiety. But then what that really does is make the anxiety more in control. It actually does
Hmm.
not reduce how powerful the anxiety is, it only amplifies it. And so I
Right.
think sometimes when parents understand that piece, it's
Yeah.
helpful because they're like, oh, well, if helping them to transition to school when they're younger is going to keep this from happening later,
Yeah.
right? Then I want to do it now where they're
Yeah.
smaller, right? And this is just the normal routine. And that's not to say that just because your kid has Sunday scaries in third grade means you didn't do something before. It's not that. But the more that we're giving them the opportunity to have success, the more they're going to lean on those past experiences to tell them what the future experiences are going to look like.
Right. And they need to have those opportunities, early enough, age appropriately, to like show themselves, like, oh, I can do this. Oh, this wasn't that scary. Like you were saying, with the kind of adjacent to like with the video of themselves, like they have to make that realization to themselves for themselves. We can tell them that all day. We can know it to be true, but until they do it, and we have to let them do it.
Yeah. Are there any specific words that you would say that would be helpful to express or would be unhelpful to express when our kids are experiencing panic or dread about going back to school?
Yes. So I think again, like words of empowerment, validation, calmness. You want to make them feel just like any of us. I feel like want to feel like safe, heard, seen, understood, and empowered and capable. I wrote down some specific examples that we
Yeah.
could possibly use. With emotional validation, it's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel nervous. A lot of kids, even grown-ups, feel this way about going back to school.
Mhm.
Like, you normalizing it, that's important too.
Yeah.
Um, Kids, I think, be they even more so when they're really little, but through teenage years, I think a lot of thing that adds to anxiety for them is like, they don't have as much control over their own lives as an adult does. And when there's so much out of your control, that definitely contributes to anxiety. I think that's a big part of anxiety. And to like, I think kids look at grown-ups as like, we have all the answers, we figured it out, we're fine. So let's like normalize them. We even struggle with this too.
Mhm.
That can be empowering to them and help them feel like, you're in solid, they have someone on their side. Um, Normalizing it, like you could say something like, sometimes our brains get really busy thinking about everything that might go wrong. That's normal. But I wouldn't use these phrase with a kid, but our feelings aren't facts, right?
Mhm.
Our brain, just because we think something doesn't make it happen.
Mhm.
So we can, but what we can tell them, we can help settle it down. We can
Mhm.
change those thoughts, right? Can then maybe explore them. What can you tell me? What about this day you imagine could be the worst possible thing that could happen? And then we
Mhm.
can. It's probably not that bad, and then we can kind of de-escalate them from there.
Yeah,
Uh,
talk about what's really true, right?
yeah, and then just like with talking about it, like you were saying earlier, like by avoiding it, because if we talk about the negative thing, it's just going to add to it and make it worse. No, it takes it away. Naming the specific fear or feeling shrinks its power over us, right?
Mhm.
We let it out, so it's not eating us inside. Um, Vague fear feels unmanageable. Specific fear is way more manageable. So,
Mhm.
'cause some kids, I think they don't even know quite why they feel that way.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Well, and helping them, kind of coaching them through to put it into words, like, what do you think could be the worst thing that happens,
Right.
right? And sometimes kids have said things that I'm like, wow, that would be scary. What do you think the chances are that that could actually happen?
Yeah.
Right? Like, have you ever known somebody that that happened to?
Right.
Have you heard about that happening, right? Because I think kids can say things, and some of the stuff that they do hear could be scary. And
Yeah.
so then it's talking about, like, how likely is that to happen? And I think sometimes kids don't recognize that, like, that's probably really pretty unlikely that that
Yeah.
event would happen, because thankfully we're safe most of the time, right? Like, we need our fight, flight, freeze, fawn very infrequently in real life, right, for
Yeah.
actual danger, but it still turns on for perceived danger, which can be helpful when you're out in the forest and you're in an unknown place, right? Like, for you to do that. But when it's school, that's generally a known safe place. And it's
Mhm.
not really most of the time about school. It's about the transition away from that, like,
Yeah.
desirable activity. Another thing, as we're going into talking about specific tools and strategies, something I was thinking about is the importance of, just like you've talked about this, the routine, but like every week, that Sunday always looks the same, like as much as
Yes.
you can manage, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously there's sporting events and activities, and
Yeah.
sometimes we have to say no, which is really super, super hard. And I'm trying to figure this out as a mom myself,
Yeah.
of like, when do we say no to stuff? But I had a family the other day who was telling me how their fourth grader had a game that ended at 10 p.m. And I was just
Oh
like,
gosh.
that is wild. I
Yeah.
just don't think I could say yes to that game. Like, yes, you made a commitment to a team, but like, we can't be out so late, right? Like, that's just like, and it was on a Wednesday night. I was like thinking, like, I want to be in bed already at
Yeah.
10 p.m. So like,
Yeah.
how is my kid going to get to school the next day after that? So sometimes we also have to say no to things, which I think can be so hard.
That always like I have a stepson who is going into ninth grade. He's been playing football for years, and I remember there were games as early as fourth, fifth grade that'd be like, oh yeah, your team's playing at 9:30 on a Wednesday or Tuesday. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like
Wild.
that- I mean, like who was like, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I, don't- I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think kids are able to regulate to that, right? Like,
No,
it may
yeah,
not
it
be
throws that
Sunday
all off.
scaries. It could be just like any, like, anxiety because they didn't have enough time to get their work done, or they didn't get enough sleep, and
Exactly.
right, or they're overly tired, right? Because
Yeah,
they get that adrenaline rush when they are kind of getting their second wind, and then yeah, I mean, it is so hard to do.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so talk to me about specific tools or coping strategies that you have that you feel like work well with kids who are having Sunday night anxiety.
So that was like the last thing I was gonna actually say, like specific things we can say to our kids, like these are more so things we can ask our kids, but like planning, like preparing, like planning for like, okay, so if you find yourself, if you start to feel nervous or scared at school, what's something you can do? And then
Mhm,
there's our coping skills come into place, right? Obviously, deep breathing is always great. I know people tend to like, oh, I know everybody breathe in, breathe out, okay, but like it really does
mhm,
help with kids. I like to tell like the littler ones, I'll have them take a deep breath so you can blow out the candle, and I'll have,
mhm,
how many candles do you think we need right now? Like, you know,
mhm.
we'll do 5, sometimes we can do 10, whatever we need, and that's kind of fun for them too,
Yeah.
um do we need to take a break? Like, I really like grounding exercises, like the 5 4 3 2 1 with the 5 senses.
Mhm,
Like, okay, you know what? You're freaking out, it's okay. Well, probably don't say you're freaking out. That's not helpful. But we're having a hard time right now.
Yes.
How about can you stand here with me and like let's if we need to step outside if we're not out the door yet, whatever. What's let me tell me 5 things you can see. Now they're getting fresh air. They're looking around. They're not hyper focusing in their mind because now it's like a challenge and I'm going to find 5 things, right?
Mhm,
4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can feel, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. I like to always make sure I do taste last because usually we're not going to be tasting 5 things at once. But
yeah.
that takes mindfulness on our part as parents. But and that helps. get them out of their head a little bit for a minute. And then especially if they're at a point where you can't really have a meaningful conversation with them, grounding, I think, is very powerful. And just, and say like whatever's causing them Sunday scaries at school isn't just like separation anxiety, transition issues. It's like, okay, well, I think this kid at school doesn't like me, and when they look at me this way, I feel weird, right? That kid probably doesn't even realize they're looking at you, but well, okay, well, what can we do if that happens, you know? And like making a plan the night before.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, just don't look at that kid, or look at what's your favorite thing in that classroom. Your teacher has that really cool thing on the wall you said you liked. Why don't you know, just look at that and focus on that, and
Mhm.
focus on your work probably, but like that, you know. But yeah, coping skills, you know, and if there's kids, well, again, if they're experiencing this like prolonging into the class day, that's probably a little more serious than the Sunday scaries, and that would go into a whole nother set of coping skills. But mindfulness things, I like to use for kids too, oftentimes, but I just feel bad saying this for morning time when we're supposed to be like, oh, eat a good breakfast. But sour candies, when a kid is kind of having the meltdown is loading,
Mhm.
giving them like a warheads were really sour when I was little, but even a Sour Patch, that the sourness kind of causes a little bit of, I don't know how to describe it other than like kind of almost static in the brain briefly, just long enough to kind of like pull them back a little bit. And sometimes that can be really helpful to like re-engage them too.
Yeah, like changing the channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of times we just need a moment, like a
Yeah.
pause, but it's really hard to pause when we're having big feelings, and especially
Yeah.
when we're really little, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to take a break from our emotions to like think about it like, okay, the worst of this might take 20 minutes. And if after 20 minutes, if I decide like we decide how to address this, then great. But like in the morning time, you're not gonna have 20 minutes where you're like, okay, go do this thing, right? Like
Yeah.
and we'll come back in 20 minutes a lot of times. But I think it also takes advanced preparation on the adult's behalf
Yeah.
to have yourself ready so that you're prepared to be able to help your kid. Because if you're stressed trying to get yourself ready and fed and your coffee made and your bag packed and whatever, and expecting that your kid's going to be able to do their part in that part, it may set you up for failure or
Absolutely.
stress or and like the worst part of a day for me is if the day has started in a grumpy mood, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we're
And
late.
feeling rushed. That just is the worst. Um, I definitely I have two little kids myself, 5 and 7, but they both around ages 3 through 5 went through, well, no, my 4 went through bouts of like really bad separation anxiety. I think, you know, some of that came from a job I had had working with kids and in high risk situations. So, you know, nothing ever happens during the daytime hours,
Mhm.
right? So I had, well, you know, you're leaving home, and I think that contributed some, but I think they really struggled with transitions period, and they would have these big meltdowns.
Mhm.
And then I would need to get to work on time so I can maintain a job to provide for them and get them to 2 different schools. And we're all just overstimulated, overwhelmed. They're having their meltdowns as soon as we get to school, maybe even in the car. Maybe they refuse to get dressed. Maybe they're stiff boarding getting into their car seat, you know.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, planning. I mean, and then you're so exhausted when you get home. Like, so for I know for a lot of parents, I'm sure, like, oh, but to think to do all that stuff the night before when I'm just ready to go to bed as soon as my kids finally fall asleep, and it's understandable, but it gets you stuck in like this cycle, and it gets your kids stuck in that cycle too, and you're feeding off of each other.
Yeah.
So definitely parent planning, getting that done the night before, being prepared definitely helps so much you and your kids.
Mhm. Well, and what I mean, because I think the thing that helps me when I'm trying to make a change and I'm like, oh, this is gonna like cost me time or whatever. Like I prefer to do this thing or I want to go to bed or whatever it is. The thing that helps me is to think about like if I'm packing lunches like for before bed, for instance, and I have the kids help, then we do it so much faster. Or
Okay.
if I'm doing the lunches even by myself, but there's no disruption, right?
Hmm.
Minimal disruption, or I'm not asking somebody to like put their shoes on or get their backpack or whatever. I'm able to focus on my task, I get it done so much faster.
Oh yeah.
So what we imagine it being, I can finish way more tasks in a short period of time where I'm not interrupted, which is generally when my kids are in bed. So
Right.
like it's not ideal,
Absolutely.
no, but also we have to get out of the routine that we're in. And if
Yeah.
we find ourselves, we keep doing this cycle where it's like we have bad mornings and we're, everybody's yelling and all these things, like the best next step is to find something that you could change
Yeah.
to see if that positively impacts your outcome, which doesn't mean
Absolutely.
it's easy.
And you what?
I said sometimes that doesn't mean it's easy. It may not be
Oh
your
no,
favorite
yeah.
thing, right? It may be like, okay, well, during the week I can't watch shows because I'm going to do these other tasks to make sure
Yeah.
that this is ready. And, instead I'm going to do this other go for a quick walk and
Yeah.
that will be my thing, or I'm going to read outside for a little bit or whatever it is that would take
Yeah.
less time than watching a movie during the week or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have that much time before I go to bed. So movies are
Yeah.
like, I would be like a few minutes or I'm falling asleep on the couch if we're being totally
Yeah.
honest.
Same.
I sit there
Same.
too long.
I
Um,
tried so hard to hold on to that for so long, like, oh, but then you're either passing out involuntarily or you're like, what do they call it, revenge staying awake, like where that's the only peaceful time you have, so you stay up
yes,
late, but you're just setting yourself up for a hard
yes,
morning
but
the
you're
next day.
miserable. Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, you know what? I'm just
Yeah.
gonna have to not watch these shows, and
Yeah.
weekend it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be okay, even though, because
Yeah.
having a good morning, a good start to your day and your kids starting their day well, that
So
feels
much
good.
more worth it. Yeah.
And going to bed, I think it's like that consistency piece and
Yeah.
expectations. And if there is something disruptive in your kid's room, like they need a nightlight or it's too bright or right, they
Yeah.
need some type of like classical music or some type of, we like the Tonys at our house where they're like audiobook kind of things and they sing songs
Oh,
sometimes and there's no screen attached to them and they just like are
yeah.
these little characters that go on this little box that does the thing. And so then my kids can do that independently and they have something, that they're listening to before they go to bed
Yeah.
or reading books or whatever it is, like setting them up for success.
Yeah.
I think it definitely starts early. And I think another thing you can do is setting a schedule, like to say like, hey, on Sundays, help me make the schedule. Like when do you want to make your lunch earlier or do you want to make it right before bed? Do you want to, what time should we get in bed? Right? Like
Yeah.
obviously you're like, do you want it to be 7:30 or 8? Right.
Yeah.
And then what happens, right? Like, what's the routine? When do you get your backpack ready? When do you check your homework to make sure it's done? Are we doing all these things? And that kind of empowers your kid because you're putting control
Oh
over what
yeah.
they can't control back in their court.
Yeah. They feel like they have a sense of control over their own life, and that is really empowering for them. I know for a lot of little kids too, like if you have your evening and morning routine, like they'll make like little pictures, little cartoons or whatever on the wall of each task in the order for the routine, and they have a little dry erase, they can check them off, and like
Yeah.
I know that's really satisfying for a lot of kids.
Yes.
So that helps
And that
sometimes.
helps us too as parents to make sure we're getting all the things done, right?
Yeah.
Like, did we brush the
Same.
teeth? Did we not? Right? Like, did we, whatever. And they're motivated to get that done because even
Yeah.
the little check mark feels good. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing something. I'm having
Yes.
for sure. Okay, so any final thoughts, Alexandra, about Sunday night scaries that you'd like to share with parents?
Just, be patient. Um, I know it's really easy to, again, as adults with our busy lives, trying to, we have to go to work. That might be stressful. We're trying to balance taking care of ourselves, being a parent, maybe being a partner, our careers. It's very overwhelming, and it's very easy to forget that our kids are little adults, and like I think a lot of us get frustrated when they're having a hard morning or Sunday scaries when we ourselves have these things,
Mhm.
but we can't expect, we get to have a moment of frustration, but we get frustrated when they do. Like, meet the kids with some compassion, you know, talk it out. Don't be scared to talk about whatever's scaring them.
Mhm.
Um, Positive empowerment, just, what we've talked about, encouragement, pre- prepare as much as you can. Um, and of course, uh pay attention. I'm not saying you don't, but like if you notice it's something that doesn't get better on its own when you're implementing all this stuff or trying your best. That's the best we can do, is try, right? You know, if things like this go on or worsen for over a month, then, you know, it's okay to acknowledge something else might be going on there. It doesn't mean it's your fault, and, you know, it's okay to look for help.
Yeah. It might be a good time if you're using tools and it's not improving to
Yeah.
talk to the school counselor, talk
Yeah,
to
exactly.
your pediatrician, talk to a therapist about it to see if there might be something more to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Well, thank you
Sundays
so
don't have to be
much.
scary.
Yes, Sundays don't have to be scary. Thank you so much, Alexandra, for your time today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Have a great day.
Thanks again, Alexandra. Making the Sundays not so scary is so helpful. I hope that you're taking away information to help apply to your child and make Sundays more enjoyable. With that, I will say thank you so much for your time today. Please like and subscribe to our show. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and keep the emails coming with future topic suggestions for our show to accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Have a fantastic day.
Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.